Welcome to Across Africa, our weekly roundup of stories from across the continent. I'm Georgia Calvin-Smith, and coming up, cattle hustlers in South Sudan are using increasingly sophisticated and deadly tactics, with fatalities from the raids on the rise. Also, we take a look at Tunisia's efforts to have the traditional practice of chafia fishing awarded UNESCO World Heritage status. The technique uses palm leaves to funnel fish into capture chambers. And marching to her own beat, I speak to Kenyan singer and festival producer Muthoni Drummer Queen. She's in Paris on tour following the release of her album She, a collection of songs that she says is her feminist manifesto. But first, cattle raiders in South Sudan are using increasingly sophisticated tactics. Raiders are now more heavily armed, better organised, and frequently deadly. The result has been a marked increase in lives lost.
For the herder communities of South Sudan, this field of cattle is effectively a living bank account. For many, this is their only source of income, an asset seen as more important than currency. So it's no surprise that these prized animals are often the subject of cattle raids. But after the outbreak of civil war, guns replaced traditional spears as the weapon of choice for raids and defence against them.
It's good to have a weapon, because it helps you to protect the cattle from people who want to steal them.
Since the signing of a power-sharing truce in September 2018, bloodshed from the conflict has lessened, but has increased in cattle raids.
Cattle raids have become violent because of the weapons. Back when we used to fight with spears, nobody died.
In the Nuer and Dinka cultures, the country's two most important herder communities, the cow is everything. The reverence of cattle even finds its way into marriage customs. In South Sudan, it's common practice for men to purchase a wife in exchange for a given amount of cows, or to use cattle as a dowry.
The best cow in South Sudan could cost $700, $600 per cow. So, and that is the first class cow. So you can see how important a cow is in society. If you have hundreds of cattle, you have millions of dollars, of course, at the end of the day.
According to the UN peacekeeping mission in South Sudan, 218 members of herder communities were killed this January in tit-for-tat attacks. Almost 3 times more than were killed in the 4 months from October 2017 to January 2018.
Tunisia is fighting to preserve its age-old tradition of chafia fishing. This method's used in the Kenyan Islands and dates back to the 17th century. But today the technique's under threat because of overfishing and pollution. Our correspondents report.
Chafia is a row of palm tree leaves anchored in the water, a natural fishery with centuries of history behind it. It all starts with arranging palm leaves in the water. To make a chafia, you need at least 3,000 leaves on average. Mohsen, a longtime fisherman, prepares this natural pathway in the sea for fish, which leads to a net that traps them.
A fish caught this way is the best in the sea. When it enters the trap, it gradually evacuates what's in its stomach because it can no longer eat. So when we retrieve it, it's still living, its intestines are clean, and it's very good.
This technique requires an excellent knowledge of sea currents and wind direction. Officials say 60% of fishermen in Kerkena can read their environment like this. Today, the waters here are polluted and overfished. Jamel, who's been a fisherman for 20 years, is feeling the effects.
For 10 years, I only had one chafia, and I earned a lot. Now, I can't even make ends meet to keep my home, even though I have several chafias. That's partly due to pollution. Look how dirty it is here. The fish can't get in anymore.
For Tunisia's Natural Heritage Institute, registering the chafia as a cultural heritage would help preserve an at-risk ecosystem.
Once the chafia is of UNESCO World Heritage status, that would allow its protection, but also push the Tunisian government to play an active role in its protection.
Protection that's badly needed for this ecological and low-footprint method. Locals say there are about 800 chafias left in Kerkena.
Ivory Coast's capitalising on an improved telecom infrastructure and is encouraging French companies to outsource their customer service departments. Our team reports.
At
the other end of the line, a customer of one of France's largest telecoms companies. It probably never occurred to her that her case was being managed in Ivory Coast.
This is the shop floor for Intelsia Ivory Coast. The site is almost 3,000 square meters. We have almost 300 team members now who handle a volume of 10,000 calls per day.
The Moroccan company set up in Abidjan, Ivory Coast's main city, a year and a half ago.
Abidjan is a highly prized location now because we've got a great talent pool here. The level of French is excellent. The people we're recruiting here have a level of university education, and this is typically their first professional experience.
And the average age? 26. All the call handlers are trained in-house. On their curriculum, French geography and local linguistic variation. Because 90% of calls routed through this centre are with France.
We tell them that there'll be customers calling from Marseille with accents that we're not used to hearing.
But the main challenge remains reassuring the customers that the call operators are able to manage their queries from 7,000 kilometres away. This team leader recalls a difficult case.
When the caller got through, he asked quite bluntly, "Where are you?" That was the question, and he wanted an answer before going any further. And when I told him, "Sir, I'm in the Ivory Coast," he hung up.
The director assures us that cases like this are the exception. With secure phone lines and generators to cover Abidjan's power cuts, the company is hiring at breakneck speed. The team could double in size in coming months, and they're already looking for more office space.
In Ghana, one young entrepreneur, tired of hanging about for hours in his local barbershop, decided to try and cut down on wait times by setting up a booking service for home visits from hairdressers. Nicolas Chemin has more.
A special kind of delivery in Ghana's capital. These men have set up a temporary barbershop in a customer's home. He had booked the appointment online.
I do this every Saturday, and the reason why I switched to them was that initially it was a lot of stress waking up on Saturday mornings tired and then finding my way to one of the barbering salons around and then staying in queue for almost an hour or two sometimes just to have my hair done.
Emmanuel Kojo Ankoma founded the company 2 years ago after he was tired of waiting for hours in his barbershop.
We decided to create a platform where busy people who really do not have a lot of time on their hands, can sit in the comfort of their homes, the comfort of their offices, or any other location they prefer and have a haircut right at their doorstep.
A haircut costs $6 and more if the customer lives far from the city centre.
I chose Save Masters because time is of the essence. I'm a very busy person with a very tight work schedule. And I do not like to spend several hours in the barbering salon waiting for my turn.
The company now employs 3 barbers and 1 marketing officer. Its founder hopes to develop his business in other African nations in the coming years.
Kenyan singer Muthoni Drummer Queen took a look at the word genre and then threw it out of the window before doing her own thing. She takes a bit of rock, reggae, soul, rap, hip-hop, you name it, and mixes it up into something that keeps you on your toes. Earlier, I asked her about her album She and why it's been dubbed a feminist manifesto.
I find that a lot of the characters in these songs have found ways to their personal identities to release the slavery almost of society's expectations, to build for themselves their own futures. And a lot of it, I think, is really about dismantling what we are told, and especially the expectations of patriarchy on women. And
there was one in particular I was listening to. I can't remember what it's called, like Dear something.
Dear Matilda.
Dear Matilda. Literally, I could feel my back straightening as I was writing. I was like, yes, I'm in control of my own fate. I can definitely see the clarity of each individual character that was being referred to in each song. But would you say that they were reflections of yourself, or were you speaking on behalf of women that you know exist out there?
Yeah, I think I am speaking on behalf of women, some who I know personally or some who I know through, life stories, acquaintances. And then to mix that up with my own perspective and to add the layer of, fantasy, as all good art includes. So it was really an interesting experience for me as a creator to take these things that are so personal and to make them universally relevant. I think it's a really cool experience.
And there's not much in your music that I think could be identified as being like traditionally Kenyan. Do you think that are you part of a growing Kenyan alternative music scene? And is there much room for that kind of music in Kenya?
Yeah, so I've been in the alternative scene in Kenya for some time, and you're right, on She there isn't a lot of traditional music representation. But then there's also the question of, but if you're born in Kenya and you're raised in, the city and you have all these cultures. Kenya has 42 ethnic communities, so when all these cultures blend and all of them become yours, what do you then represent in the music? Do you maybe just take the melange and make your own thing? That's the route that I've taken for many years. But I deeply want to represent the idea of a global Kenyan. So we are from Kenya, we are globally facing, and the music can resonate with audiences across the board.
With Thoni Drama Queen there. Take a listen if you have a chance. It's some really great stuff. Well, that is, though, all we have time for Across Africa. For now, do join us again, though, if you can. Till then, take care.